Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. John Suntress here. I'm getting ready for Rose City and Portland this weekend. Can't wait to see everybody. I hope to say hello to you if you're going to the con. Couple show notes. I know commercials can be annoying. Please listen to the commercials at the beginning of Word Balloon if when you download them you hear them, or if when you're playing them live. That's how I get paid. One of the ways I get paid. I don't get paid if you fast forward through the commercials. And there's a portion of the audience that does fast forward. So please, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's only 90 seconds to 2 minutes of commercials before we get to the meat of the show. I really appreciate it. I also have a YouTube channel under the name of Word Balloon. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I'm trying to get to at least 1,000 subscribers. I'd like to put more video content up there. There's already dozens of files at YouTube. Again, it's under Word Balloon. Questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com. Okay, almost set to go. One more commercial, and then it's off to Word Balloon. Thanks a lot for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here, great episode for you today. It is a rerun, but it's a great one. It's Geoff Johns from early 2006. Now, let me put it in context by telling you some of the things that we talk about. Infinite Crisis, 1 year later. The Superman Up, and Away story that followed Infinite Crisis, where Clark has no powers. That was Geoff and Kurt Busiek writing that story. Green Lantern Corps and plans for Green Lantern. And, of course, Green Lantern status quo after 1 year later, Hal had to go to deep space. And that was a big mystery of why he had to leave Earth. And, of course, Guy Gardner was on Prime duty guarding Superboy Prime. Remember all this stuff? Is it all clicking in? The Action Comics run that Geoff did with Richard Donner. The Spite Network Blade TV series. His Teen Titans run. Geoff and also Dale Eaglesham were about to revive the JSA, but of course then it was called Justice Society of America, and Alex Ross was doing incredible covers, including an homage to that amazing All-Star 3 cover. We talk about 52 and Infinite Crisis more. Debating over the publishers wanted a death in Infinite Crisis. Was it going to be Superboy or Nightwing? And at that point, obviously, was chosen. Con-El, Superboy, sacrificed himself. And Geoff talks about the debate and why Dick Grayson matters and what they had to do to convince specifically Dan DiDio. I mean, Paul Levitz was the publisher, but I guess, Dan as executive editor is like, I just don't think we got Tim Drake. We got, this is pre-Damian, so we got Tim Drake. Why do we need, Dick Grayson to continue? We talk about the Doom Patrol Titans team up that Geoff did in Teen Titans, which reminded me a lot of what we saw last year in the first season of Titans. Now we're into season 2, and of course the Doom Patrol series up, but I think a lot of those, even though a lot of it is Grant, obviously Morrison, Geoff, I think, reminded us about how cool and interesting the Doom Patrol could be. All-Star Batgirl is in there, Green Lantern Rebirth. We talk about 52 being at the halfway point. Also, the editorial transition from Steve Wacker. Remember when Steve was actually 52? I totally forgot. To Michael Siglain, another significant DC editor, no longer there. And also just a discussion about the crazy 52 stuff that wasn't written by Grant Morrison. Remember, it was Greg Rucka, Grant, Mark Waid, and Geoff. So really interesting stuff, and I think great commentary if you remember this period of 2006. And Geoff is his usual friendly self. I miss Geoff. I know how busy he is, and honestly, I absolutely do not take it personally when it's like, hey, buddy, it's been a couple of years. You want to come back? When I see him, he's incredibly kind, and we always have a nice conversation. It's been a long time since I've seen him, though, and I know, and it's funny, like Geoff Love will tease. He's like, yeah, I know. Jeff's your boyfriend. Everybody's your boyfriend. So, you get to be friendly with these guys and everything. But no, as I was telling the creators, it's like, we'd rather you make the donuts than talk about making the donuts. It's totally fine. And then Jeff's got his hands full making a lot of different donuts. So, anyway, enjoy this great new representation, if you will, of an old conversation. Geoff Johns for 2006 on today's Word Balloon. It's all brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you, League, for your great support via Patreon. Really means a lot. I met a lot of you at Rose City this weekend, and I thank you for your attention and also your patronage. Word Balloon is free, but if you want to help out the cause, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon. And is Word Balloon worth $1 a month to you? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month? I try to give you interesting content you won't find anywhere else here at the Word Balloon Network. Thank you for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics, one of the leading new publishers out there doing their stuff and doing it proud with great creators and great ideas top to bottom. I'm talking about things like Joe Pruitt's Shock, a great horror anthology, Tim Seeley's Dark Red, Cullen Bunn's Night Temporal, and Brothers Dracul, and Dark Ark, a great book that he's doing with Juan Doe, Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly doing Stronghold, Chris Sabella's Trustfall, all really interesting stuff from Aftershock Comics. We have been talking to a lot of great creators at Aftershock, including the people that I just mentioned. I haven't had Joe Pruitt on yet. I know I just slurred during the word mention. You'll forgive me. I'm getting dry mouth. Let me take a sip of water here. Much better. So anyway, we haven't talked to Joe Pruitt yet about about Shock, and I hope to soon. In fact, I hope to have a meeting tonight to make that happen a little bit faster. But in the days and weeks ahead, we will be talking to more Aftershock creators about their books. You don't have to wait. Go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on these books to order through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. My conversation with Geoff Johns from 2006, February of 2006, now on Word Balloon. Let's start with Green Lantern. I really enjoyed the last story as it wrapped up, and the problems of 1 year later still haven't been resolved. We don't understand why Hal is a marked man and had to go to deep space.
Yeah, that is the 1 year later aspect. The POW thing, the bounty hunter thing, is actually what we're going to tackle this coming arc. I guess the next arc issue starts with issue 14. It should be out. I mean, I haven't been done for a while, so it should be out any week, I hope. But it's something that I wanted to roll out slowly. I wanted to start out with 1 year later with a pretty big bang, and I thought Revenge of the Green Lanterns and throwing the Corps in there and Guy Gardner and having Hal really kind of come full circle and face some of the Green Lanterns he left for dead, and also return Arisha to the fold, because she's a great character, and the Green Lanterns everyone's taken away so much from the Green Lanterns, is putting some of the pieces back is what I've been wanting to do. A lot of it is new, like Sornik Natu and so the other new recruits, but Arisha just kind of held a special place in Hal's heart and mine, so that's why we brought her back during that arc.
It's pretty cool that you've moved on to different female conflicts and possible relationships for Hal, as opposed to, leaning on Carol. Carol's in the past, and you've got Arisha now back, and also the maverick little fly girl. I forget her name. Cowgirl, thank you.
Yeah, again, the point of, I was talking to Pete, we were talking about this arc, and I said, hey, I'd love to bring Arisha back in the game, and we had talked about, she had died in an issue of Guy Gardner Warrior. I know Bo Smith pretty well, and he was always like, well, she was going to come back anyway. But my point was, Pete said we brought enough characters back from the dead. And I said, I know we have, Pete, but look at the fact is the only Green Lanterns that have stayed dead have been two females.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's just, and so right away he's like, let's do it. And so we got to bring her back, which I was really excited about. And she's a fun character, she's a great character. And the more female characters that Hal interacts with, I think the better. I think that character just should be caught between, his triangle should be human girls, alien girls, extra-dimensional girls, whatever. It just makes it more fun, and it gives you more story potential and more situations. Like I think the Green Lantern Corps is a very fun environment to be in, especially with their attitude against Hal Jordan and Earthmen in particular.
I also enjoyed Guy Gardner during that entire story, and also the resolution as well, that he's now in prime duty.
Yeah.
And you've sprung board another couple stories, obviously, that I'm sure will be addressed down the road.
Yeah, they'll be unfolding over the next year. Guy Gardner is probably one of everybody's favorite Lanterns. You either love him, hate him, but I think you'd love to hate him. And I think he's really grown into a pretty fantastic character since he's been introduced.
Is there coordination then between, you got Howard Chaykin writing the miniseries right now of Guy Gardner, you've got Gibbons writing Green Lantern Corps. How much interaction do you have with the other two writers?
I have interaction with Dave a lot, but with Howard I don't have much interaction, to be honest. About Guy Gardner, I know Howard, and I'm sure it'll be great, but we haven't really talked about it, so that's up to editorial more than us.
Okay. I've noticed that your work on Superman has been very collaborative. And actually, in general, Geoff, it seems like there's a neat mentality going on in DC where maybe the germ of the idea starts with you and you pass it on to various people, whether it's Keith Champagne or, in the case of Jen Van Meter in JSA Classified, and, to more direct collaboration with guys like Kurt Busiek and now with Richard Donner.
Yeah, I mean, the more direct collaborations are like with Kurt on Superman. That was Up and Away was a very enjoyable experience, and working with Donner obviously is a whole nother level. But I like working with people. I like collaboration. 52's been a blast because of that.
Yes.
And I think the book's better for it. Obviously, the book's better for it. I think everyone working on the book would agree. And all of us as writers, I think, are better for it because we're learning from each other, like what does Grant do that, because they're in their thought process all day. So you see how they work when we break a story, and you see how Greg approaches something and how Mark looks at something, and you kind of take away a piece of that, and hopefully they learn that from you too, and you just get a different perspective of how you're approaching material and characters and story and drama and everything else.
I thought Jen Van Meter did a great job taking, I think the seeds of what you started, I think, with JSA Classified. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, she did her own story, and it was terrific. There wasn't a whole lot, the characters were laid out, I think, and chosen, but she really ran with it and did a great job.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I do want to get to 52, but I want to ask about Superman because
sure.
They're very different collaborations, obviously, and for very different purposes as well. And I want to start with Kurt because, and also I don't want to slight Alan's collaboration with you on JLA, which I thought.
That was great. Again, these are all my friends too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, do you remember that back in high school, I'd sit, Friday nights, before I discovered girls, I guess would be. I'd hang out with my friend and we just talk comics all night and come up with stories, and that was always more fun than sitting at home alone and coming up with. So it's like I love writing. It's a great process, but I really do I like people more than I like writing.
Well, it sounds like and maybe I'm presuming this, but in the case with Kurt's an old vet and everything. He wasn't very comfortable with Superman, which I found kind of interesting until he said he wrote that Secret Identity story. That's
great story.
Yeah, excellent story.
Yeah.
But this, the year one story was so neat, and the characterization of Clark being Clark Kent, and it was just so nice to see Clark Kent action in business for a couple issues and tap into that side of Superman's character.
Yeah, I also thought that Kurt and I found a level of fun in the book that kind of helped bring Clark to life a little bit more. People always want to paint him as in a certain corner or whatever, but since we got to focus on him so much, we got to see him experience his powers again for the first time, enjoy his powers again for the first time, and struggle with the fact of, they're coming back, what does this mean, what happens, what do I do, and having a support structure, with Lois Lane and everyone around him, pushing him into the role he's born to be.
It seemed, too, that some of your scene choices and some of the things that Clark would experience had kind of evoked that Weisinger era or those great Kurt Swan covers of the 60s where you'd see something crazy like Clark trying to, use the Green Lantern ring and being Clark while he was using it and stuff. Yeah. That was great, and I think you found a neat way of showing visuals that I think someone like me, being an older reader, can appreciate, but also putting a new twist on it.
Yeah, I think also you look at those old covers from the 60s and the 80-page giant stories and all that stuff. You'd always see a cover, and it didn't matter what it was. A lot of them were goofy, but a lot of them were just intriguing.
Sure.
And you always wanted to find out, well, what is Superman's new power, and what does why does Jimmy Olsen hate Superman now? Like there was always something that compelled you to want to know about the story because everyone knows Superman and Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, and you know them so well that in a strange way, those covers, they're all twists on the iconic nature of those characters and their relationships. Like, you'd see Lex Luthor being a superhero and Superman hiding behind a statue going, oh my God, Lex Luthor's a superhero. And you want to know why and how, and I guess some of that, Kurt and I are big fans of that, and some of that is we want to evoke that into the Superman run.
Now that reminds me of something I wanted to bring up about Green Lantern, sure. and I'm glad that you're making such an interesting, strong support cast, because I really think that Batman's supporting cast and Superman's supporting cast are really, and maybe Flash to a degree, but I really think that they're the only ones that are real household names where everyone knows who Alfred is and everyone understands who Jimmy, Perry, and Lois are. But,
yeah, I don't know if everyone understands Flash's supporting cast. In my book, it was more the Rogues.
There you go. Well, that's true too.
But yeah, Green Lantern. I'm making an effort to build a supporting cast around him. I'm hoping Cowgirl is one that'll stick around, and then the rest of them are his fellow cops. You know, Green Lantern, Green Lantern's got Gardner and Kilowog and Salak and the Guardians, and then we've got General Stone, who's I guess kind of like his Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're making an effort to flesh out Green Lantern and try and get some of these supporting cast characters to stick. I really hope Cowgirl does.
That's cool. Well, and that's a great thing too about 52 in general, because I think a lot of what were once considered second and third tier characters are really getting a chance.
Yeah, I'm hoping we've got about 5 or 6, I guess, main characters, and then a few other characters that are kind of B stories, but still there. And I think if we even have 2 of them become A-listers, it'll be a great success, because it's really hard to have those characters break away. Like you look at the number of characters that can support an ongoing book in both DC and Marvel. There's a lot of characters they try over and over and over that just don't make it. And some of these characters in 52, I think Steel really should be a mainstay in the DC universe. He's a great character, and Black Adam should be a mainstay villain in the DC universe.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about, because we talked about it before. Your handle on Black Adam is just amazing, and it's fair to assume that I know everyone is working on every character.
Everybody's working on every character. I mean, obviously I'll gravitate towards Black Adam quite a bit.
Sure.
Everybody's working on every character.
Well, and I don't know, obviously we don't know what's going to happen at the end of 52, but is Black Adam a character that you can find an infinite amount of stories from? Because you've really invigorated, I think, the Marvel Universe, taking nothing away from what Judd is doing now with the powers of Shazam.
Right.
But Black Adam really means something very different now than what he did for all those decades.
Yeah, I think it started when Goyer and I were working with him on JSA, and we got to build him up through that and into 52 now. But I'm glad people respond to the character. I think he's a very complex character. The reason I think he works so well in the DC universe again is that they don't really have, of another character that fits that role, that really has that kind of power and morality behind him.
Yeah, where you can appreciate where he's coming from, and it's not any, again, I think, he makes bad choices, and he makes really, and I was bummed to see Terra Man go, which I liked his NASCAR look. I thought that was great. Too bad it didn't last.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character, and I certainly now, and I mean, this might dovetail with a combination of you and Rucka, just the things you can do with Kandak.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think you can do Kandak, and it's not an analogy of the Iraq War, but it's a place where you can just have all sorts of stories about morale, and
yes,
and what's good and evil, because the reality of the world is there is no black and white. There just isn't. Black Adam represents that great gray area in the DC universe that I think, the DC universe is much more black and white than the Marvel universe. But with a character like Black Adam, he's right in the middle, and he's gone on both sides, and you can kind of see his point of view, and the way he protects his homeland, and the way he approaches things. Yes, they're sometimes extreme, and sometimes they're not. And you can see he's a real, he's fallen in love with this girl, Isis, and there's a lot of other things coming up that will just completely continue to crack him open and humanize him even further.
And I think we saw a clue as to what's coming up in Teen Titans. I'll leave it at that,
yes,
and let people check out recent issues of the Titans. And I want to get to the Titans, but while we're staying on 52, I want to stay on Black Adam and the question, because there's a case where it seems like if this were a rock song, where this is you and Rucka jamming together, and we can hear both of you in that storyline. And it's so great to see the Question and Montoya, bringing their street, sense into Kandak and dealing with Black Adam's world. And it's really been a very interesting twist to the story.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, Greg's such a pro, and he has such a handle on those characters. I think he writes the best Question, ever. But it has been a lot of fun, and again, it's all about the collaborative process of the book, working with all the guys, and Greg's just, again, he's one of the two other guys that I just, I thank the powers that be every day when I wake up to work on 52 that I'm working with those guys.
Who? So can you label who the other guys are in terms of like who's running the show on the Doc Magnus story, for example?
Well, sure you can.
Or if you don't want to, it's cool.
No, sure you can. I don't know if I will, but
it's
everybody
right.
kind of takes point, but the point also changes. Like certain things, you're like, okay, I'll take point on this, and then suddenly it'll evolve, and then okay, I'll pass the baton off to Greg or Grant, or Mark will pick it up, or vice versa. So, like Mark and I had jammed on a scene together for Booster Gold last week, just because we were both hanging out, and we got talking about it, and we broke it quick, and it was solid. It was really good, and it was a lot of fun to do. And if we had gone off and done that scene separately, it would have taken me a week to break it, and it would have taken him a week to break it.
Are you understanding characters in a way that you never have before? I remember Wade said that working with you guys made him appreciate, and I can't remember specifically, or no, actually, I think it was even Adam Hughes that he said kind of gave him the handle on Wonder Woman that he never had before.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's kicking ass on those origins there because he is so concise, and that's all we want him to be. He's like just very concise, but
that's a tough gig too for 2
pages.
It is
a tough gig, but you look at what he's done, and he's taken. He takes the concept and he adds character to it. Every single story. I just read the Black Canary one, and it was terrific.
That's
just
cool.
Every single origin story he's doing, it's only 2 pages long. You want to keep it pretty open. The art's beautiful, but he manages to get the character across so fast. I just love what he's doing. But it has made me appreciate the DC universe more, the diversity within the DC universe, because we're really hitting every corner from space to subspace. We're going to be going through just about everything.
So we're going to learn finally what happens to Ray Palmer.
Well, we'll see what happens.
All right, very cool. See? Good. I like to open my presents on Christmas Day. That's all right, man. I respect that. Now let's talk about the Donner collaboration on Action. Thank you very much for the preview, because it's an amazing story, and it's such a neat thing where you are obviously taking story ideas from the films and incorporating them into the DC universe. And actually, I guess it started with Up, Up, and Away to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, we set up the Sunstone Crystal, which it's been used for a while, and actually in the Superman mythology, just not so prominently. But yeah, our Up, Up, and Away, we set up, the Fortress of Solitude. We thought it would be fun to have, if we're going to build a new one, let's have the look, and Donner obviously has certain things. I remember we were designing Jor-El, and he looked at Jor-El and he said, "Can he look like Marlon Brando?" And we actually no, because of legal issues, we can't make him look like Morrison. So there's certain things that we're doing that echo the film a bit, and there's certain things that we're just having a completely different take on. But it is really, really fun to just sit down and talk to him about Superman, and he's been having a good time with it because it's a different kind of creative process for him. He's so used to the films and talking about a comic and the pacing and everything else. I don't want to get into the first issue too much, but there's something that happened in the first issue that originally, when we talked about breaking it, happened at the very end, and then Donner was like, "Look, let's get this story going. Let's have it happen right up front, and then the story starts." And he was totally right. And he's all about story. Every scene's got to be about story and character, and he has, he's about heart, but he also wants stakes, and it's just a very enlightening and reinvigorating experience to be working with him on a comic book.
Does a script page have to end with a bang in the same way that a comic book page, usually does? That last panel is usually that compelling moment to make you turn the page. Does it? I mean, I know that scripts are usually like just a minute of dialogue. So
they are, but you never know how to time it.
Okay.
Because it depends with action and dialogue. On a screenplay, it's completely different. I remember when reading an article when they wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark that every 10 minutes they had kind of a cliffhanger. So they said every 10 minutes was like a serialized movie, like the old movies. So you can time it out like that, but there's not like a specific end of a page reading it.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess that is what I mean when I say that. I guess there is that end of the scene where you obviously want to move on to the next
there's always a famous saying, and everyone who's been in a screenwriting class already knows it. But you get in a scene late and you leave early.
Right. Okay. Now, does he buy into any of the new, like, McKee and any of that story stuff? Have you ever, like, talked to him about some of the, or are those really just new labels for really what just comes down to old-fashioned screenwriting?
I think they're probably old-fashioned screenwriting. I've never read the McKee book. I know a lot of people swear by it. I'll stick with the writer's journey. That's my Bible. That's what I really enjoy. I like that book quite a bit.
Is that Stephen King or William Goldman? Or
no, it's
John,
Christopher Vogler, Vogler.
And his first name again?
Christopher
Vogler. Okay.
And whenever it's based a lot on Joseph Campbell's hero stuff. But whenever you meet a lot of people who want to become writers, and I always tell them there's just two books I give them: is Shot by Shot, which is a directing book, but it really is it's perfect for visualizing a story.
Okay.
And the writer's journey, which I think is it's all you need. And then you really just need to start writing. You got to start writing. And I always tell everybody, if they want to be a writer, just write. If you got a Batman idea, just write the Batman story.
Sure.
No one might never sell it or print it, but it doesn't matter. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
I gotcha.
And it's a challenge. I remember, I think everybody who wants to write that first script is always the hardest. You're like, how do I do it?
And that was Stars and Stripe for you.
Yeah, that was, and it took forever to write. And it probably went through 20 drafts, and still, it was still very, very green.
Okay.
But, but they get easier, and then, and then you hit the next wall of, okay, these need to be better, and you gotta push yourself harder, and just continually try and get better and learn from your mistakes.
With Richard Donner writing these scripts, how did that work? Did you guys get together at his office? Did you?
We just get together. We had, we'll either have lunch or meet at his house or have dinner or whatever, and we'll talk about the story and kind of break it page by page, and then I'll go off and write the script and send it to him, and we'll talk about it and change it around a bit, and then give it to Adam, and then we'll change it a little bit more, and then Adam will draw it.
Adam's art is amazing.
It's fantastic, and if anyone hasn't seen the preview on EntertainmentWeekly.com, it's really, really stunning.
Yeah, it looks great. I really can't wait to...
the coloring's fantastic, too.
Yeah, I'm digging the black and white, exactly. I look forward to the coloring as well.
Yeah, it's great.
And I've heard him say amazingly kind things about Adam Kubert's work as well, and how great everything looks, and he must be thrilled with the visuals as well.
Yeah, he can't believe it. He saw the pencils and was blown away, and then we said, well, it gets colored. And then he saw it and was really just shocked about how good it was, and it was fun because we got to spend some time with Adam and I and Donner got to spend some time together in San Diego, and I think Adam had a real good time with him.
What does he think? Have you asked him in terms of, like, I don't know if it's generosity or just a decision by Bryan Singer to really emulate the Donner style in the first, movie back? Did you ever, get his take on that? I mean, he must be thrilled.
Yeah, I guess we didn't discuss it a whole lot, but I guess he was very flattered, and he loves Bryan to death, and has known him for a long time because they did X-Men.
Sure, that's right.
They were in a lot of communication over the course of the film, and I think he's just, he's proud of Bryan more than anything else.
How long is the run going to be then on Action for the two of you?
Oh, right now it's open-ended. Originally we were just going to stick around for, probably 12, but now we've got a lot of story ideas and they keep coming out, so we'll just be around, and right now it's open-ended.
Has he pulled a name or a character out of his ass that you're like, wow, where did that come from?
Not yet. So he does pull characters from the movie.
Okay.
It's really fun. But
like Miss Tessmacher is going to make her return.
Yeah, exactly. He read comics. Actually, we don't have any of that stuff coming up. But okay. He read comics when in the 40s and the 50s. So he's got a very when he saw. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. When I was working on JSA, in the beginning, I was still working for Donner and had a copy of the new issue on my desk, and Green Lantern, Alan Scott was on it. He said, oh, it's Green Lantern. I said, how do you know that's Green Lantern? He goes, well, that's Green Lantern. And it's Green Lantern because when he was a kid, those are the comics he bought.
You bet.
He bought the 40s Green Lantern. And so his stuff on Superman dates back to the very, very beginning stuff. And so he knows, I've educated him on a lot of the villains. He knows a few already. And because of when they worked on the movie Brainiac, he's a big fan of Brainiac because I guess he'd done a lot of research, and we talked about him a lot when we were talking about trying to pitch for the new Superman movie way back when. Did a lot of research on Brainiac, so it's really fun to just get his take on these ideas and characters. Do you have an idea what's happening next?
Well, it's kind of interesting that you got, a kid. I'm thinking, just because of what I heard or what I've seen as far as previews and stuff, that the kid might end up being a Bizarro or something like that.
Well, you'll see what happens.
Well, there you go. You see, we can cut that out if I'm on the right track.
Sure.
Did you submit a script for the Superman Returns project?
No, we didn't. We talked about a story idea. This is way back before Brian was involved. I think this is back when Tim Burton left the project.
Okay.
So it was in the late 90s, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Action Comics Annual that's coming up.
All right, well, we have an Action Comics Annual coming up. And we got artists from a lot of great guys like Ragnar Morales and Joe Kubert's doing some stuff, and Art Adams. So it's kind of designed like those old 80-page giants.
Oh, that's cool.
We have several stories that pertain to actual stuff that we're setting up for our Action Comics run and happening during our story and stuff. But that's going to come out in January, and Adam Kubert did the cover with his dad, and it's just awesome.
Joe Kubert always did the most interesting Superman, so I'm taking nothing away from the Sons, but it's always great to see the old man knock one out of the park,
Yeah, he's great. He's really great. And we have a bunch of other guys that are going to be on the book. That Eric White's doing a story, which is an old classic Clark Kent as a kid story, and which I cannot wait for. He's one of my favorites out there. So it's going to be really fun to do, and we've got a lot of great artists lined up, and I want to do something, again, it's fun, and it's more of a, there's like this diagram of the new Fortress of Solitude in there, and there's like Superman's top 10 most wanted villains, and we really wanted to do like who these guys are, and have those things where kids, people used to pore over that stuff, and just look at it and figure out what this is and who that is, and make it a real experience instead of just a straight read. And that's kind of the way we're approaching Action Comics is like our fourth issue is going to be, part of it's going to be in 3D.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, come with 3D glasses. And the whole point of it is to make it more of an experience and a fun activity. Action Comics, we just wanted to make it a book that we're doing different things on beyond just writing art. We're trying different things to, just make it something you look forward to going to every month and not knowing what the hell you're getting.
That's great. It was the flagship title. It was the, engine that started it all.
Yeah, and we want to make it that title again. We want to do things that nobody else is doing in that book, I don't know the last time there's a mainstream 3D comic, and it's story-driven, too, which is even better.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it should be a lot of fun.
Put your glasses on now.
Exactly. There'll be a little icon that says, do it. So that's going to be, no pun intended, super fun. But that's kind of our approach on Action Comics, is just to have a good time, and hopefully the reader will have a good time too.
That's fantastic, and I'm really glad that both companies, I'll include Marvel in this as well, both companies have made the annual matter again.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, let's. I remember when they did it back in the '90s, and they would just kind of do a crossover, and there'd be teams on the annuals that you didn't really know, or it'd just be kind of a random story. And back in the '80s, the annuals were really important. Like, they were the cool culmination of storylines, and they were essential to the books, and that's kind of what we want to do with the Action Comics Annual, and I think with annuals after this.
That's really neat. It seems now, more than ever, writers are working more in tandem with editors, or at least the basic editorial philosophy that maybe wasn't there for several decades. You hear stories, and I think you can read between the lines that editors had a heavier hand in terms of allowing a script to be written.
Well, I think it's all dependent on the editor.
Okay.
I think everybody has had good and bad editorial experiences, and vice versa. The editorial has dealt with writers who are pleasant to work with and who aren't pleasant to work with. And they're both valid. I think in a creative environment like comics, there's a lot of passion, and when there's a lot of passion, there'll be a lot of arguments. But there'll also be a lot of if you both come at it from the point of we want the best story told, you'll be fine. But my experience as editorial, I've been very, very happy with the guys I've gotten to work with, like Steve Wacker and Peter Tomasi and Eddie Berganza and Idelson on Action Comics. It's been a lot of fun. And Tom Brevoort over at Marvel was great to work with.
That's cool.
So I haven't had, there's certain editors I haven't enjoyed working with as much. I loved working with Joey Cavallari on Flash. That was one of the best times I've ever had.
That's cool.
And he was a great editor to work for. So I don't know if there's maybe it's different. I've been in the business, I guess, over 6 years now, 7 years. Yeah, just over 6 years. So I don't know what it was like before.
Sure. It just seems like, they're more open to ideas. And maybe, again, that's just a perception.
Yeah, I think so. I think people, I don't know if they were, never were either.
Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't say either way.
Yeah, I guess I got to ask like Engelhardt or somebody like that.
Yeah.
To compare.
Every editor has their ideas, and you get in arguments with everybody. There's certain things Dan does that I don't like. There's certain things that, any editor does that you won't agree with or like. But it's a compromise because you're working with so many people.
I got you.
So some of that stuff, and then sometimes, like on Green Lantern, Peter and I kind of just do our thing. Nobody really bothers us. Or says you have to do this or add this character, do that or that. We're just telling our story. And Action Comics is pretty much the same thing. I collaborate with Kurt Busiek and Matt Eisen because he's working on the other Superman book, but it's a pleasant collaboration. It's fun. And Justice Society, man, they when we first got that book, they just kind of kicked us this old box of Golden Age characters and said, "Good luck." and that's the philosophy is kind of the same with JSA, is that they just kind of let us do our thing, and it's great. But editorial has been, really supportive. And working with the right editors and finding the people you kind of gel with is the key, I think, for everybody.
While we're on JSA, will we see a 1940s JSA story from you?
Not currently. There are no plans currently to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with our monthly book. We're going to stay in the modern, or at least we're going to follow the modern team.
Okay.
But look, if Darwin Cook would do a JSA story, I'd do it with him. Or Eric White, actually, I'd do it with him too.
There you go. Well, yeah, because I think that's the one thing I'd really like to see a 1940s JSA story, just because I do. I mean, I love what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. I love the new stuff as well, but.
Yeah, the classic guys are great. I actually prefer the modern day characters because they're more diverse in age and powers and everything else. When you had a lot of mystery men in the 40s, but I love the original guys too. It'd be really fun. I actually have an Atom story I'd really, really like to do. A JSA story that revolves around the Atom.
That's cool. Al Pratt. Wow, that'd be neat.
He's one of my favorites.
That's cool. See, I'm an old Rex Tyler fan. I mean, I don't mind.
Rex is great.
I give you credit, honestly, because I hated Rick until your run on JSA.
Oh, Rick is fantastic, and I actually think he's even more interesting and different with our new JSA launch. But there's a reason we brought Rex Tyler back in the book is we wanted to have one golden ager like just kind of retire and enjoy life and have his son there. So if he ever needs to throw the call back on and help his kid out, he can.
Yeah, that's the great thing about it. And also, I love Bedard's story that's going on right now in JSA Classified.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I actually like Tony's stuff quite a bit.
Me too. I wanted to ask also about Blade, because
Sure.
I was really disappointed. I enjoyed the series, and it was really a nice summer series. There was some really good television, actually, for a change. And I thought Blade was one of those shows, and I was kind of disappointed that it looks like Spike's not renewing it.
Yeah, well, I think the show got better and better, and I was really proud of it, and I'll be happy to have it on my shelf in the DVD collection. But that's the way it goes.
Okay.
But it was a great learning experience, and I love working with Gore. Again, it was working with people, and that people I really liked, and came away with some really good friends, the actors and the writers and producers and stuff. So it was fun.
And I know you're turning your attention now to a project that you're working on with the Robot Chicken guys, which I think is fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, we just closed the deal last week, and it's for Dimension Films, and it's going to be it's a feature movie I'm writing and directing with Matt Senreich over at the Robot Chicken Studios, and Seth Green's producing with us. And it's totally different than anything I've ever done, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Is it that stop motion kind
What's
of? Is it in that same format as Robot?
Stop motion, so we're going to have to build everything.
Wow.
Yeah, which would be fun.
Very Nick Park, isn't that the Wallace and Gromit dude?
Yeah, it's going to be different style. We'll find our own range in there.
Well, I think there's two ends of the spectrum when you compare the Robot Chicken stuff with the Wallace and Gromit.
I think we'll probably
stuff.
end up somewhere in between with the tone.
Oh, okay.
Of the project. It's not going to be too. It's going to be very. I guess it's going to be a very family friendly friendly movie.
Okay.
And Robot Chicken on occasion cannot be.
No, I don't think so.
But it's damn good. It's damn funny. Those guys are hilarious.
No, it's a great show. Absolutely. They're talented guys, so it'll be neat to see how they do with a PG or a G audience or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I hope so. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the Teen Titans, because I think since 1 year later, really interesting questions are still being answered, and it's a neat mystery, and also very interesting to see all these different Titans, characters that no one has ever heard of before suddenly pop up.
Yeah, it's fun. Again, the whole point of 1 year later to me was like, okay, if I can't make Titans more interesting or a better book, then I shouldn't be on it anymore. And I really racked my brain and worked with Tony, and we came up with tons of story ideas and different ways to go. And we thought we had a lot of stories that would be new and introduce new characters and new situations, and also bring back a few familiar faces to the team. But it's been a blast, and I put all of that. The reason that it is so much fun is because I'm working with Tony on it. Taking characters like the Ravager and Kid Devil, who people are like, who the hell is Kid Devil? and I think we've turned them into really viable characters. I'm really proud of what we've been doing with the book.
I wanted to talk about JSA. The big revival is coming up in December.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing what, we've gotten a tease from the Alex Ross cover.
Yeah.
In terms of the lineup, are there more additions to come as well?
There are a few other characters that we didn't put on the cover just because we didn't want to
spoil everything.
It's a massive team, but we're kind of taking a Legion to Superheroes approach, where we'll focus on certain characters and rotate the spotlight around. And really, it's a society, and we want to make it a true society. And again, introduce some new characters to the fold, as well as dust a few other ones off.
Well, and I think you've made a few characters in particular, like Mr. Terrific, very important, and put them up in front of the DC universe. And I mean, that's great. There's a character that I know had been introduced before, but
he appeared a handful of times in John Ostrander Spectre.
Yes,
and we brought him over from that and really just focused in on him, and to really propel him, made him the chairman. And I think he's just a fantastic character and one of my absolute favorites in the Justice Society and in the DC universe. And it's really nice to see a character like there are a lot of JSA characters I think that have kind of made the leap, and the Justice League Unlimited has helped us quite a bit. Like Mr. Terrific has been very prominent in that, and Stargirl has been prominent in that. And I think the JSA has such a great wealth of characters. I always wonder why there was no Hourman in the Silver Age, and there was no Dr. Midnight in the Silver Age. They kind of never made the Silver Age versions of those characters. And so it's nice to see them flourish and grow. And look, the JSA, the first series, got through 87 issues, and now we're relaunching it. It's going to be a high-profile book, and who would have thought?
Well, it really was a high-profile book. There was really, I understand. I mean, maybe you guys, you were obviously very busy with 52, and probably didn't have the time to really commit to the monthly. And
I had to leave. I left the book, I guess, over a year ago now. I left the book over a year ago, and I just had to, strictly for schedule. And now with 52 winding down, it's the time. It's time to. We're getting close to the end of 52, and now I have my time back to really devote to JSA. But I didn't want to do it unless I could really make it a great book, and I just think the new series with Dale is going to be dynamite.
That's cool. Yeah, Dale Eaglesham is such a great, heroic. James Bama almost kind of, that iconic kind of hero artist.
Yeah, and the thing that really sold me on his art has always been emotion. His emotions are they're not stock, they're pure. They're from, he takes that story that's on the script and he just delivers it in such an honest way. That's what I really gravitate towards.
You can well, that really is a signature, I'd say, for most of your artists, whether it's Ethan Van Sciver, whether the Don Kramer and Len Kirk on the previous runs on JSA. There's a lot of emotion on a lot of your characters. I think, in a lot of those stories.
Then you've got Ivan Reis, who can do about anything. Back on Green Lantern. Yeah, I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to work with the guys I'm working with.
I wanted to ask a couple questions about 52 and Infinite Crisis, and that I don't need to know the whys or whatever, but what I am curious about is, and you're using it now in the stories, which I think is interesting. Nightwing was supposed to die, or at least I should say rather, Dan DiDio didn't understand the need for a Nightwing, and he's been pretty public about that.
Yeah, this is way back. It's got to be 2 years ago. And the thing that people think that, oh my God, Nightwing was going to die until issue 6, and that was never the case. There was talk about him dying way back when, before issue 1 was even plotted or written. And Dan, Dan didn't understand Nightwing, and everybody, myself and Greg and everyone else really wanted Nightwing to be around because he's a fantastic character.
Yeah, and it's a big dog pile, too, because there was a bunch of you guys kind of jumping up from guys like Brad Meltzer as well from the outside, and even Paul Levitz.
Paul Levitz he was, the buck stops with Paul Levitz. Well, Paul was like, no. And it was like, okay. And none of us wanted to do it, and I think, I was very, very against it, and, unfortunately, I had to offer up my sacrificial lamb of Superboy to placate him.
Is that true? Really? One of them had to go.
You know what? They wanted a death. And They wanted death at that moment, and it was between, that moment was involving this kind of like the substitute Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman, which was Nightwing, Wonder Girl, and Superboy.
Sure.
And he always wanted Nightwing to go, and we kept fighting against it, and so when we knew that was kind of like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman would be split apart, and it would be up to these guys to kind of save the universe and save the day, and so Superboy was chosen that way.
I see. Well, and I really am just curious, like, if you remember what frame of, not argument, but just, in terms of trying to explain Nightwing, what words kind of made Dan go, oh, okay, I didn't realize he was that important and he served this role. I think everybody
kind of gave their opinion to it, and also, it's like, look, my mom knows who Dick Grayson is.
Yeah.
And, I think I've heard some people go, oh, they should have killed him, would have been a big death, and I just don't, there's no point in it, because there's more story to get out of him.
No, I think you're right, and I think it's great that Marv Wolfman is one of the guys that you guys tapped to.
I think it's fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to reading his run.
That issue you guys did, the Titans Annual. I mean, it was wonderful to hear Dick Grayson talking like Dick Grayson, and I mean, you certainly you really kind of took that character and made him your own, and it was
I really missed him.
Yeah, I bet that's the thing, and I think you gave that character a new purpose, and his death did matter. I mean, he became an interesting character, and now I think fans do miss him as opposed to the snot he was when Reign of the Superman. I think.
Yeah, I guess he was kind of bratty back then. I always liked him though. Like Carl Kiesel and Tom Grummett, for me, man, that book was, when that book launched, that was one of my favorite books out there. It was just a fun book. And when I pitched Stars and Stripe, I always said it was a cross between Superboy and Starman. That's cool. And that's the kind of the model I used.
I look forward to the new Starman dealing with.
Yeah, I mean he's a very interesting character, and he's not what you expect at all.
Okay, cool.
Oh, anyway, back to Dick Grayson. Before we really got started, that the idea was off the table, and I think Dan really wanted to find out why people cared about this character and why he was so important. And through Infinite Crisis, actually through that whole discussion, I even learned it more than I had previously thought. I just learned more about Nightwing and his place in the DC universe as I did before, and I put him, and he suddenly became the glue. Because you look at Nightwing, and he is the glue to the DC universe. He walks between so many camps. He's the sidekick gone good. He is, in Batman's world, in the Teen Titans world, in the Justice League's world. If anybody needs help, they'll go right to Nightwing. And he is kind of that pillar of, he's much more approachable than Superman. And he's kind of that, that great, that big brother in the DC universe that nobody else fills.
Yeah, and I think that's neat. I think he went from being the little brother to now, one of the respected elders.
Yeah.
I love what Brad is doing in JLA, and I am curious. I know that you guys have said during the convention season that future stories are going to work in concert, and eventually we will see the JLA JSA team up of old.
Yeah, you're going to see the crossover. I think it's the first official crossover between JLA and JSA titles. I don't know if they've ever done a crossover before like that, where the two books they actually had two books.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, maybe All-Star Squadron back then and everything.
Yeah,
but it wasn't...
All-Star Squadron. But the crossover will happen early next year, so we're really psyched. And I love what Brad's doing, what he's got coming up. It's going to be a fun ride. But everything like we're laying on JSA, a lot of the stuff will pay off in the crossover.
Is Titans getting to the point now where it's going to have like just Justice Leaguers stopping by that used to be members, and there really is this roster of former members that have moved on and done other things.
Yeah, it's growing daily. I mean, we're expanding the Titans roster by 3 in 2 months.
Okay.
And then we're going to build up to Titans East for next year, and the rosters will shake out again after that. But yeah, there's the Titans. Again, it's like an ever evolving, growing, beast. The DC universe is real, and it changes and goes past us, and it'll be here long after we're all dead.
Is there an area of the DC universe that you haven't explored yet that you still are like, oh, give me the chance, and I would love to write this title or these characters?
The Bat universe I haven't really gotten into, which is why I wanted to do All-Star Batgirl with J.G. Jones.
Right. Yes, let's talk about that.
But that's just the opportunity came about, and I had a Batgirl story that I'd been working on already, and I love Barbara Gordon, so it just kind of fell into place. And J.G. and I have been wanting to do something for a while, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But that probably won't happen for about, I guess, at least a year.
Okay.
But that's the one area. There's 2 areas actually. The Bat universe I'd really like to get into. And eventually someday Justice League would be a lot of fun to do. So the areas I don't really get are like the New Gods. I just never really got super involved in their world. I really look forward to what they're going to do with it, because it'll be the first time I think I actually really get into it. I hope. But there's a lot of places in the DC universe I'd love to jump into. I'd love to do Doom Patrol Monthly. They were really fun writing the Titans.
And I wanted to talk about that because that was a really great story in Titans, and I think a very clarifying way where, man, again, as an older reader, it's you got to the essence of those characters.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, the characters all are already there. It's just a matter of putting them in a room and having them act a little crazy.
Yeah.
And they're the only superhero team that does that. Like Mento is mental.
Yeah.
And his helmet fritzes out, and he puts it on, and he can write books and novels, and his thought process is completely bizarre. Robot Man's a great character. He's Ben Grimm and Rex Mason and all those guys kind of fall in the same camp and Wildcat. And you've got Elastigirl, who psychologically is more devastated than a lot of those guys, and Negative Man, who's just a bizarre character, and the Chief, who's a sick bastard. And I think they're great. What a great group of characters.
And I love that twist on the Chief. Because
the Chief, that grew out of something Grant had already started playing with in his run.
Okay.
And I just kind of personified it a little bit more and really used it to illustrate, that both the Doom Patrol it appears to be a family, but really they're very dysfunctional, and it's okay. They need work, just like the Titans are very dysfunctional. They need work, too. One team's not better than the other, and it's okay to struggle. And that's really what the storyline was about.
And you're taking, it's funny because I remember either in our conversation or I just saw you at a panel or something, but just that great relationship between Mashur Mala and the Brain.
I love those guys, and again, that's something Grant sparked, and I just kept going along with what he had set up, and it was just a lot of fun. I'm a massive fan of Grant's run on Doom Patrol, and so I took a lot of what he did and sprinkled it with some of what the original, and then tried to add a new layer on there myself, and I think it worked out pretty well.
The stuff that Grant is doing right now in All-Star Superman is right up there.
Fantastic.
And it's funny because I think in a way you guys are tapping into that same thing with mainstream Superman, much like what I said about the glowing, Clark Kent being green. But it's that appreciation for the goofy stuff and making it work today.
Yeah, it's we don't want a goofy book, but you want a fun book,
right?
And there's a difference, and there's a fine line sometimes, and but Superman isn't Wolverine. He's not going to go around and claw people in half, and and you don't really want him to. You want him to get mad and fight and kick some ass, and he's got to do that. But at the same time, Superman books have to be fun and colorful and enjoyable and optimistic, because that's what Superman is. But it's been a lot of fun to tap into. I grew up reading the old 60s comics because of my uncle, and when I go to my grandmother's house, I pull his old box of comics out, and they're all checkerboard DCs.
Sure.
And I loved that old stuff, and the Superman and Jimmy Olsen's and Lois Lanes were always the most interesting to me because they had these crazy, bizarre stories, and you never knew what was going to happen. You know, I mean, we have. I really want to do an imaginary story at some point in Action Comics. I just think that would be fun.
Sure.
But to do it kind of modern and not, don't do it silly. You can have it fun, but have real stakes and have it affect the characters and have it become a story about the characters instead of a gimmick. And it's been a lot of fun to tap into that stuff.
Now, it's Kurt and Fabian still on the other Superman book?
Just Kurt.
Oh, it is just Kurt now.
Carlos.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carlos Pacheco. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool.
And his stuff looks beautiful, man.
You bet. He started already. Isn't he doing the story with Fabian?
He did Action Comics for 3 issues between Up, Up, and Away and
and you guys.
Our first issue, Donner and I's first issue.
I see. Okay, because I knew I saw him recently on Superman.
Yeah, he did that action run.
Very cool. I did want to talk about Batgirl because,
Sure.
That was always an interesting debut. It came during that Infantino time when Julie Schwartz had just taken over the Bat titles. And there were some weird things going on in the Batman universe, and she was thrown in the mix. And I always forget, was she created for the series first?
She was created, from what I understand, she was created for the television show and put in the comic book.
Okay.
The simple fact is Commissioner Gordon's daughter wants to become Batgirl, and she becomes Batgirl. It's a great story idea. It's just a great idea because everybody knows who Commissioner Gordon is and the relationship between him and Batman. And what is Batman's reaction when he finds out Gordon's daughter is Batgirl? I mean, there's so much story there. And really a lot of that is what we want to explore is this young girl breaking up the boys club, essentially, and trying to find out why is her dad so fascinated with his Bat character. And it's about a daughter and a father reconnecting, and it's about a conspiracy within Gotham City, and it's about, why the supervillains put on masks, and it's all about it's about a lot of things, but it's all about really this. At the end of the day, it's about this girl who's just trying to reconnect with her father, and that's why I like the story so much.
Oh, you didn't mention your new series with Van Sciver. Is that still under wraps?
Oh yeah, it'll be out. It's a project Ethan and I are doing that I equate to Flash Iron Heights, like what we did with that. But
very
it's
cool.
Green Lantern universe, and it's going to hit probably around April or May. And I'm really excited to work with Ethan on Green Lantern again. That kid was born to draw Green Lantern. And he completely changed the way people approach the character in Rebirth.
Yes.
On a visual standpoint, and he and I are going to have a lot of fun. We always have a good time working together, and we're always, especially when we're working with villains, and this thing obviously involves Sinestro, so we're very much looking forward to it. And we've already got the whole story kind of laid out, and we'll probably start on it pretty soon.
Very cool. Did you win anything at that Spike Awards?
No, I wasn't nominated. I just went because I worked for Spike, and
sure.
I'm friends with all the executives over there, so they invited me over, and the whole Blade crew was there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was actually, the awards was fun. The party was a lot more fun.
Well, I'm sure.
The party was fantastic. It was at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood, and it was just an amazing spread. It was really fantastic. It's probably the best after party I've ever been to.
I should ask about 52 and say, where are you guys in terms of writing? Have you guys finished writing the scripts?
Oh, we'll be done soon, very, very soon.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll be done very soon. It's all plotted and everything's going, and we're very happy with how it's looking and shaping up, and I'm really excited about it. It's fun to be part of a project like this. It's so experimental, and people are going to remember 52. They're just going to remember that experience, and I really have high hopes that we're going to end on a very positive note. That's
cool, and there haven't been any bad forks in the road in terms of just hassles or screw-ups or anything like that. Everything's moving.
It's pretty smooth.
Trains are on time.
Switching editors midway through.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Thank you.
Even as Kurt Busiek said, Watchmen didn't have the same editor all the way through, and neither did Dark Knight Returns.
I didn't know that. Len Wein didn't do Watchmen all the way through?
Not all the way through.
Wow.
So
tell me about the new guy. Yeah, because, everyone...
He's fantastic. He's been my assistant editor on Green Lantern for a long time, and he's been working under Pete Tomasi and Steve Wacker for a long time, and Mike Carlin. So he's got the skills and the knowledge, and he's a great guy. It wasn't. I hate losing Steve, but
sure.
He's fantastic, and good luck to him, and we'll still go out and get drunk together, but as we do. But Mike is terrific, and he stepped right up, and it's a well-oiled machine, and we're so far into the game that really it's a matter of staying on course and finishing up, so we're good.
That's cool. And was Jan Jones also involved in an editorial capacity on 52?
A little bit. Mostly it was all Steve and then
and now Michael.
And then Michael, but yeah, Jan was there, and Janine Schaefer too also.
Okay. And wow, I got to tell you, it's funny because so many of these big stories end up becoming novelizations, and I think you're going to need at least a trilogy to get through 52 if you want to really put it in book form.
I don't know. Maybe they'll separate by character, or I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. It'd be great to see something. I'd like to see something come out of 52, whether they're doing action figure lines, but it'd be great to see like an animated movie or a set of novels or something. It's a lot of fun, and it's such a complex story, and all these things start tying together soon. People are going to see the tapestry behind it.
Well, and that was the other thing I was going to ask, because as we're speaking, we're not quite yet at the halfway point. We're close.
Right.
And I'm wondering, are there still things that have to be introduced without getting into specifics? Or, there
are certain elements that will be introduced.
Certainly twists, I'm sure, are coming.
Yeah, well, twists will continue on going, but there are a lot of elements that will be introduced, and stories, will keep moving forward, but I guess you can expect to see some, it really starts to ramp up in terms of the twists and turns, I think, because all of them start to hit. We've got a lot of, you got like 5 or 6 stories going,
yeah.
And now we're all reaching, the kind of the Act 2 point, and what things are going to go left and right and up and down.
Are there moments of crazy that came from somebody other than Grant Morrison? Because
yes, there are.
I mean, that just...
We've all tapped into our inner...
Your inner Grants?
Our inner dream child, I guess. and pulled crazy ideas out of our heads, and it's been a lot of fun to do that. There's scenes in there I think probably people thought Grant wrote, that Greg wrote, and scenes that Mark wrote that they thought I wrote, and vice versa.
Sure.
I've already seen people guess completely wrong. And it's been a lot of fun because I think we're all utilizing each other's strengths to try and up our own game and take it back to our books. After this experience is over, and I'm almost sad thinking about it, but after this experience is over, we want to go out and we're still a team. We're going to go out and do some other things, and I want to carry all the positive experiences I have with Grant, Mark, and Greg over into my writing over on Green Lantern and Action Comics and Justice Society. I really want to get those books, to the A+ level and become a better writer and put it in everything I do. And I'll use it in the movie I'm doing too. Everything, it's a skill set and it's storytelling, and everything I've learned from these guys, I'm going to carry on for the rest of my writing career. And that's something that's not going to happen again.
That's cool. And I wondered about, any possible... You just did the essay question in terms of explaining obviously the things that you can take away no matter who you work with next or even on your own as far as your writing. But I am curious about that fine line between, wow, that was amazing, and then let's try and make lightning strike twice. And I can appreciate, what's the rumble in the executive offices? And they got to be thrilled with the response to 52 and the idea of a weekly comic. But when you get right down to it, you guys got heavy hitters on art and writing. And it has taken such a long time. It's taken you guys off of regular monthly books as well.
Oh, sure. Right now I'm only doing Green Lantern and Teen Titans.
Sure.
I think people think I'm a lot busier than I am because we've got 52 coming out. But for about 6 months, all I was doing was 52 and Green Lantern and Teen Titans. And now that 52 is wrapping up, I can go back to JSA and I can launch Action Comics.
Sure.
And it is. It's been, so far it's been a really solid success for DC.
To the point where they might try and think of, okay, what's the next weekly event?
I don't know. We won't be doing it. I'll tell you that much. We did it. I'm very happy with how it's turning out. I'm very happy with the effects it'll have on the DC universe after all is said and done. It's a great crew. But we don't want to try it again because we've done it. Now we're going to go on and do different things. But that doesn't mean all 4 of us aren't going to work together in the future.
I want to ask about the way Infinite Crisis had to end in terms of making the schedule.
Sure.
Can you talk about what's being done for the eventual trade and
Sure, the hardcover came out last week.
Oh, okay. Well, I see. I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
So is the art been fixed and everything, or?
Well, yeah. It's really unfortunate. Phil and I were in Australia for 2 weeks prior to shipping, and the choice they made to release the art, and really it's 2 spreads that I think they took shortcuts on. They obviously did. It's the opening one where they just kind of colored it red.
Yeah, when everyone's fighting. Yeah.
Yeah, where everyone's fighting, and it in my opinion, it's detrimental. It's detrimental to the opening of the book, because the first thing you see in that Metropolis fight is something that just doesn't look like it's finished.
Right.
And it was a decision that was made, without consulting us, and I'm not gonna complain and whine and moan or anything, but it's obviously not very happy about it.
Sure.
And the second decision is, the spread at the end was always going to be drawn by Phil, and I thought it was really important. And Joe Bennett's great, but he was busy on 52, and the idea of a spread of 80 heroes is just, it suits somebody like Phil and George so much better, because that's what they do.
Sure.
As much as I like Bennett and what he's doing on 52. So I'm really happy that we were given, giving, I guess, a funding and everything to go back and do it how we wanted to do it.
That's cool.
And that to me, I'm really proud of that hardcover. I think it looks great. And that was, scheduling was always a nightmare on these things. And, ask Marvel. But that's, and that's me being completely candid and honest about the entire situation.
No, I understand.
And I very rarely talk about behind-the-scenes stuff, but that's it.
Well, I appreciate that. The only other question I wanted to ask about the writing of Infinite Crisis is, it just seemed to me that 12 issues would have really given you, obviously, so much more time to explore so many neat things about the story, because you really did have a great handle on a lot of these interesting characters that, only came back for this story, especially, the 4 that were trapped in limbo.
Sure.
I told you, because we had spoken right after the first conversation that the Golden Age Superman has with Batman. The fan in me couldn't help but say, you need like 10 more scenes like that. And I understand that stamped who the character was and how he could cut to the core of the Earth 1 heroes, despite the fact that they don't remember knowing him. But it's just like, oh, man, if only you had a little more time and a few more issues.
Yeah, that issue, look, that series could have been 1,000 pages, because of all the material that was,
sure.
That was asked to be put in there, and all the story with the characters and everything else is, it really could have been, 12 issues, 18 issues. It's one of those rare moments, I think, when you see a series that, it isn't padded at all. Like everything we did, it was all story, in there. And if we had 12 issues, sure, I would have spent more time on everything. But again, I'm happy with what we did with the pages allotted.
Would you ever want to, is there going to be a novelization of Infinite Crisis?
They did a novelization. I haven't read it. I'd never spoke with the author, so I'd be curious to see what they did.
Okay. Man, I've missed every Infinite Crisis spinoff, haven't I?
Yeah.
Well, I bought the issues.
Cool. It was a fun project, and at the end of the day, I'm happy with it.
Well, I appreciate your time today.
Sure.
And thank you for a very fun conversation as always.
Absolutely. Anytime, man.
That's Geoff Johns from 2006, and I actually have a couple more conversations I will probably throw out there in the months ahead, because they're great conversations, and it is kind of fun to go back and hear about the people he's working with and the things he was working on, how things turned out. I think he was teasing something that he and Ethan were doing, and it might have been Aquaman. I can't remember, because I guess it would have been after Rebirth. Green Lantern Rebirth. But anyway, it was fun, and I miss Geoff. But again, I totally understand how busy he is, and with all the changes in DC, I really would like to get his point of view of what's going on there, and how much he's able to do. Of course, Doomsday Clock, man, one more issue left, and that's been a real interesting ride. I wonder how it's all going to tie together. I can't wait for that confrontation between Dr. Manhattan and Superman and what it will bring. So, hope you enjoyed today's Word Balloon. It was brought to you again by Patreon. My subscribers at Patreon, thank you very much for your great support. If you'd like to subscribe, you can go to patreon.com/wordballoon or click on the Patreon ad on the front of wordballoon.com. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners. And Word Balloon brought to you by Aftershock Comics. who are killing it with really great stuff. I saw Marguerite Bennett at Rose City this weekend, and I reminded her, I'm like, hey, man, I really want to talk. She's like, absolutely. So that's terrific, and that's coming in the weeks and months ahead. What a very, very nice lady. Very, very nice. How talented as hell. But seriously, I appreciate her wanting to come on Word Balloon. I've been meaning to have her on since the DC Bombshell days, and certainly with Animosity doing well for Aftershock, a huge reason to have her back. But, Donny Cates' Baby Teeth, Garth Ennis's Jimmy's Bastards, and Walk Through Hell, and so many other wonderful books that come out from Aftershock every week. Genre building and genre bending concepts that will entertain you and surprise you with the directions they're able to go in. It's great. If you're missing Vertigo, Aftershock has a lot of great things that I think would fit the Vertigo bill, but that's not all. There are straight up action adventure books. There are straight up superhero books. Lots of great genres, all under the Aftershock banner. In the weeks ahead, we'll be talking to more creators about their Aftershock books, but head to their website. Check it out. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the time codes on these books to order through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening. More great stuff. I have already, finished up my Rose City work in terms of networking and letting people know that we got to talk soon. And I'm happy to say that there's a nice roster of people, and I got a nice group of cards. Really looking forward to touching base with everybody, give them a chance to kind of, respond or bounce back from a con week. Con weekends are tough, man. And I think when I was just a con goer, it was tough. But I know how tough it is for the creators, and also getting back to their deadlines as well. But I already have neat stuff lined up for Word Balloon in the days and weeks ahead. Cannot wait to share it with you. Until next time, thanks for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions. Copyright 2019.